for new graduate in the STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineer, and math.
Yeah.
How about you, Ray? What do you think?
Well, I like the fact that they have those exhibitions back in Saudi Arabia that really resembles the life that we had on space. So I remember kids speaking about how they were able to sleep, just like Ali, using the sleeping bag and just trying to do experiments, trying to understand how the rocket launches. That really brings warmth to my heart to see that amount of inspiration that they got from this short mission. So we're probably looking forward for upcoming missions, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I will say I really enjoyed all the content that was from the Saudi Space Commission website that shows a lot of those centers in play and the dozens, thousands of students and kids and families that have gone through that. So I've really enjoyed watching those videos and the impact that you all are having in your country. We're going to go to the next question from the Orlando Sentinel. This is for John Schaffner. You've had a hand performing 2 activities tied to MIT research, but I'm particularly interested in what it was like to don the skin suit. What did it feel like getting it on and off? And from a bigger standpoint, what are your thoughts in being involved with something that could lead to humanity's expansion to become interplanetary?
Well, I love the thought of doing something, and as one of my protocols going forward in this mission was to engage in products and experiments that are to advance our role in going to space. So that was one of the things I was most adamant about, looking to children that are aspiring to space and then helping current technology. But putting that thing on was like you've seen a caterpillar come out of a chrysalis as a butterfly.
Yeah, well,
imagine that butterfly going back into that thing.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was, it goes on pretty easily, generally. It takes about 10 minutes, and if that's easy. It's quite snug and tight. You just wiggle into it. You do it by yourself, and you get into it. But now I know the problem with women zipping up their dress. But they give you a long string to do that, but you got to catch it in microgravity. You got to find it. So it goes on. It's quite tight, and it loads you down, but it's quite comfortable.
Yeah.
I was happy.
Once you get it on,
Once you got it on, it was good to have it on. It felt good. So.
And you did exercises with it too for them to collect data on, right?
We did. We had a lot of resistant bands exercise that we had demonstrated. We have ground data now compared to multiple applications of the skin suit on orbit, and then I just finished here on the ground again, and I have another one tomorrow or 2 days. Some repeat performances of that to compare the baseline data. So we're trying to determine a method for the countermeasures, the effect of being in microgravity over a long term, so that both long and short, so researchers can go to orbit for the short term and come back multiple trips and not suffer this horrible readaptation sometimes that we do. And also in long term to maybe limit the applications of exercise that are necessary to help lower that. So I'm happy to be involved. It was a great trial run, and the team's doing an awesome job crunching the data. So.
Good.
I mean, I don't know if you allow me, that I found it funny and interesting that every time he put on the skin suit, and he asked me to measure him with a measure tape and see his height, and he was surprised that he didn't get any taller. And I was like, can I measure myself? And I got 1.25 inches taller. So it's interesting, like the effects of microgravity in each individual.
Yes.
Sure.
That's fantastic information. Rihanna, we have a question for ABC about your grandmother. I know you talked a lot about her during this trip. What have you told your grandmother about your trip, and what are you hearing from girls in your homeland? And I will add something. What did she think when she saw you wearing your earrings in space?
Oh, well, definitely brought tears to her eyes. I didn't want to make her cry, but she was very happy to have that moment to see her earrings go all the way up to space. And I think
and maybe her granddaughter too.
I think she has more fans than I do right now. It was a special moment just speaking to her, and she was very happy and assured to see me every day on TV. I think that was very comforting for her as well. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a question from Sophie Sanchez from Cosmin Chicago. For Peggy, were there any instances of real-time decision-making during the mission that you had to make for your team, specifically during flight or landing?
Real-time decisions. Let's see. We were changing timelines around a lot, and so we had to make decisions on who would do which tasks, and as we would, slide the program around to fit the timelines that we had to make for some of the experiments. And so I did a lot of help with that, trying to rearrange everyone's schedule and readjust as we marched along our timeline.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Peggy, I have questions from Collect Space and from ABC, and I'm going to put them together. But it was, how was your shortest space flight to date, and also your recovery from this mission compared to your long duration missions?
Yeah. So usually, I adapt quite well going up into space, but coming home after long duration missions, I don't feel so hot. Mm-hmm. Gravity sucks. But on this mission, I was hoping that being short, that I wouldn't have those negative effects on landing. And unfortunately, I did have some of those negative effects. It wasn't as bad, and I recovered much more quickly than I did after a long flight, but they were there still. So, but we got through it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Another question for Peggy. We spoke before the flight about the differences in training across the 3 spacecrafts you have flown aboard. Having now experienced the power of 9 Merlin 1D engines, how would you compare it to a Soyuz or even shuttle? And congratulations to the entire team for successful mission, and that's Jay Keegan from TLP Network, the launch pad.
No, it's very different. Each of the vehicles is very different. The shuttle, of course, had much more thrust, 3.3 million pounds of thrust, and when the solid rocket boosters ignited, there was absolutely no question you jumped into the air. Okay. The Soyuz was much slower on the ascent. It's got a very elaborate mass detection system that once the thrust equals the mass of the vehicle, then it holds it in the air until then, but then it falls back. And so there was a half a second where I'm like, are we going anywhere? In the Soyuz. The Dragon was much faster in its response at the initial launch. You felt it immediately, the thrust. And I felt like the staging was very similar in all the vehicles. In every instance where you dropped like the SRBs on the shuttle, or that you dropped the solid boosters on the Soyuz, and et cetera. It was all that staging where you kind of go into your harness as you float for a second, you know. And what was interesting on the Dragon, I thought, was how long it took to build back up to 1G on the Merlin engine as we in the second stage. I thought that was interesting that it took some time, probably 30 seconds or more before we actually built back up to 1G.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Peggy. We have another question for you from the Houston Business Journal. How did visiting the space station feel this time, knowing that we're about less than 10 years away from its eventual retirement?
Well, I think it's, obviously it's still going back home to me to go to the space station, so it was very special to be up there again and be a part of that mission. And, I enjoyed being a part of it before. What's exciting to me about this phase is that, space is changing. It's, becoming more commercialized, and I'm really excited to be a part of that and to share that with my crew.
Yeah. Thank you, Peggy.
And following up on that, this one's for John, Ali, and Rihanna. Having now experienced a week aboard the International Space Station, what advice would you give Axiom Space about must-haves for the future Axiom station?
Okay.
An easy-to-operate toilet.
A gym, some form of exercise area, like the station has. That's important. We did not use the station equipment on this journey, but I would have enjoyed a chance to, keep
Exercise.
things, working. So, of course, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray, anything to add?
Well, I think since I have that crew quarter, I was very comfortable. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, I don't think I have any more suggestions.
Yeah, I think that, I think it's important to have a system of payloads where you can interface and put the cables behind the walls, and that's, I think, something that we're trying to design into
Yeah.
Axiom Station
Yeah.
to make it still easy to use, to do, to set up new experiments, because you're going to change out experiments all the time.
Yeah.
And so you need an easy platform to do that, and we have like a pull-out thing where you can mount your experiments and payloads and do the cabling and then slide it back in. And I think that'll
Yeah.
be a huge asset
Yeah, that
to
would be
the
very
station.
efficient. Hmm.
Thank you so much. We have Sophie Sanchez of Cosmic Chicago. This one's for Rihanna. During the return, Peggy called out the drogue chute deployment, and we saw you grab for the handle on your seat. Can you tell us more about what was going through on your head and what you felt at that moment?
Well, during the Sims, we really did not live that kind of,
Sensation.
yeah, the sensation of how the drugs will work. So when you said that, I was like, what should I do now? Should I brace? What should I do? It was running through my head, and then to me, that was actually the star of the moment of landing. It was really amazing. I remember I screamed after we almost, the drugs almost like opened, and how we felt the rocking and the turning. I don't know, it was amazing to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that it doesn't take that long being in space to where, you don't realize how heavy you are. As we were
Yes.
coming in during the
Yeah, yeah.
re-entry, I said,
Yeah.
okay, guys, we're up to 1G. And Ray's like, it feels like 5.
It was surprisingly
And it was
heavy.
hard even to lift your head.
And
Yeah.
it's because your body very
Yeah.
quickly forgets how much mass is associated with you. And then, coming in and trying to lift your arm during the G's as you're coming in home, it's really dramatic, I think, that sensation of G's after you've been in 0 G.
Yes.
Because,
I agree.
on the launch, 4.5 Gs didn't feel as bad.
Zero.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're relatively adaptive.
Yep.
Exactly.
You started out at 1, and then when you go from 0, it seems to change your perspective a lot more about. And also when the chutes deploy, the lateral, the other accelerations that you get, the
Yeah.
spinning, the rocking, all of that is new to your inner ear and your sensations. And so I think it feels very dramatic, and it's
Yeah.
probably not really. If we had done it on launch day, which we wouldn't want to do, but if we had done it on launch day,
Oh,
I don't
same.
think it would have
Yeah.
felt as dramatic.
Yeah.
So we're going to do one last question. This is for John from ABC. Peggy told us that she was assigning her crew to spending one entire orbit in the cupola. We saw your photos, and what was that experience like? And I'd also like to add, was there any other homework that Commander Whitson gave this crew?
Well, that was a mandate, of course, to
Yes.
spend time in the cupola, and it was probably the most wise issue or suggestion that we had, and it was marvelous. It gave you a chance to calm down and forget what you had been working on instead of flying in and flying out. And you saw so many wonderful things. You saw a sunset, a sunrise during that time. You saw so many. I didn't care where I was at that moment. I didn't worry about the geography, just the flight. And you just watched this marvelous thing slide under you. In any direction you looked, you saw something different.
Yeah.
So you got thousands of views, and it was just a calming moment. I called it the cool pool of space. You drop into the cupola, and it was, the sound changed because all the fans and ventilation were above you.
True.
And you just dropped into this. It wasn't silent, but you just dropped into a different element, and the earth came up around you,
Yep.
and you just wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
And I almost did. So it was marvelous. So other suggestions that she gave us, enjoy the ride.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was, it
She
was a
kept
marvelous,
saying that
marvelous
every day.
journey.
Yeah. Remember,
Thank you.
you're in space. Just
Oh.
enjoy space.
Just enjoy space.
Well, that is a wonderful way to close for us to enjoy space and enjoy the moment. It's been an honor to work with Peggy, John, Ali, and Rihanna over these months, and watching this mission has been an honor and a joy to watch them talk about it. And before we close, I'm going to ask everyone, if you haven't had the opportunity, axiomspace.com. There's lots of video and pictures of the mission that this crew took, and we'll have much more content sharing on our social medias and on their Twitter and other social media platforms for the individual crew members. If you want to schedule an interview or have follow-up questions, please send us an email at media@axiomspace.com. That concludes our AX2 Return to Earth press conference, but I want you to stay with us as we show you some highlights of the AX2 mission and our favorite moments. Thank you, shukran, and go AX2.
Dragon, copy. Go for launch. Today, we stand on the threshold of a remarkable journey thanks to your unwavering spirit to explore beyond our home planet. And with that, let's get to work and build some history together.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff. Go Axiom.
Together we expand what is possible in low Earth orbit. Ad Astra and Godspeed AX2.
Hey gang, this is Dragon Freedom up here with a new crew on orbit. And I'm really excited about returning to space, but even more excited about welcoming 3 new astronauts.
I wish we had more words than just amazing, fantastic, awesome, all those things, because they fall short.
تم إجراء وإنجاز جميع التجارب العلمية والأبحاث المنوطة في هذه الرحلة بنجاح ولله الحمد، وإن شاء الله نسأل الله أن تعود علينا بالنفع في المستقبل.
On behalf of the Expedition 69 crew, it's been an honor to share the ISS with the Axiom 2 crew. We're going to miss them. We wish them Godspeed tomorrow. Thank you guys for a fun week.
Very copy. Thank you for the hospitality.
AX2 is back on Earth.
Every story comes to an end, and this is only the beginning of a new era